Hello there, Sith Bell here. I know it's been a minute, and I'm sorry. See, right after I recorded my last video, I caught the plague. And then after that, I bought the entire Discworld series on ebooks. And then I challenged myself to read those as fast as I can. Turns out, it takes a long time to read 41 books, and I'm still not done. And then, after that, we got a puppy. And did you know that puppies make it very difficult to focus and very difficult to record? Sure are cute though. Anyway, now that it's been 3.5 months since my last upload, I thought I'd do something a little bit special today. And I wanted to kind of go into a time machine with you and show you where my builds came from and how I got started playing Minecraft the way that I do today. So it's mid to late 2020, maybe September, October, and I've been watching this series called Hermitcraft for the last few months, and I've learned that the way that I played Minecraft for the last 9 or 10 years was not anywhere near as intricate or advanced as it could be. And so, with that, I decided that I wanted to play on a server with other people for the first time since Minecraft 1.6.4 beta back in 2011. And so I joined a server called Minefinity. And this is what I built here. So, unfortunately, the server only lasted a few months before it fizzled out and it shut down. So, there's a lot of incomplete builds here, including what was going to be a major expansion on my starter house, which is why I have this horrible platform of nothing on top. But as you can see, I lived with a great view of the ocean. Can't beat the oceanfront property. Had a little mailbox, even had some mail in it. Here is my one of my pet skeleton horses. We haven't gotten into those in Sith Bell Survives yet, but they exist in the game, and hopefully we'll find some before too long. This is a map of the property that for some reason I put on half slab so it's floating, and it shows everything that I have built so far, or had built. I guess it's all past tense now. This is almost 3.5 years ago. Anyway, let's go inside. So this was my first ever starter home on a server, and I am not a neat person. I am very disorganized, and this house is a testament to that. I was collecting heads just like I do on Sith Bell Survives, but instead of hiding them in chests so they can be used for proper decoration, I decided to create a giant trophy wall that encompassed the entirety of my base. So understand this was my first time ever seeing player heads or the mod that had player heads and all these blocks, and so I was fascinated and I wanted them all on display. And when I say that it's a mess, I mean it's a mess. There's just random junk everywhere. uh, like there's some semblance of organization, but it's just no labeling. You just have to know where everything is, and that doesn't even take into account the shulker box ceiling, which admittedly, for keeping your mess off the floor, it worked pretty well for a while until I started getting too much stuff and then it started taking over the walls. But one thing I do like about this is you can see that my penchant for naming shulkers started all the way back here. You know, shoulders, knees, and toes for the heads, of course. Zombie flesh. We'll get that song stuck in your head every time. Bony Maroni. Some are more boring than others. Nobody rides for free. Um, that's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one because this was my grass box, and there's a particular saying that if you know it, this will be funny. If you don't know it, it will be confusing. Gravel, 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 gravel. Mostly these were just to make me laugh, and they still do. Oh, your spare parts, bud. Obviously, I was watching Letterkenny at this point. This was from a trick or treat event that we had, or a Halloween event that we had. So yeah, I made these banners. We'll get into that a little bit later. Another thing is to see how my naming of my equipment evolved over the years. As you can see, I'm holding a totem of undying because I was very squishy when I first started. I died so much. from rockets because I had never flown with rockets before, from mobs because I played on peaceful up until this point and this server was on hard, just all kinds of stuff. So having a totem was very nice. I'm very proud to have graduated from this time period, but it's fun to see a little token of who I used to be. So we have a fashionable hat. We have leather pants, which I think leather pants has made it through every iteration of Minecraft that I've played since. We've got Betty Boots, which I need to remember because I love that name, and I'm going to put that on some boots that I get in Sithbell Survives, I can guarantee you. And then Tie Bomber. So the reason why my Elytra is always called Tie Bomber is because another player on this server actually gifted me my first Elytra, and because my name was Sithbell, he named them Tie Bomber. So in his honor, I've called my Elytra that ever since. My ender chest is, well, in keeping with the rest of the house. So on a server, there's the shopping district, and so you need currency. So one thing that I don't have in Sithbell Survives is a wallet, but on multiplayer servers I do. I've got living dead pearls. Scaffolding is another one that's made it through the whole time. Hoyavaka. Oh, wardrobe. I wonder if I've got any other fun names in here. Oh, Firebolt. Pre J.K. Rowling scandals. Bell's private jet. I think those are the only two. Oh, I have end rating pants, apparently. End rating boots. I was not creative with my boots names. My caving corset. I always wear a corset. Because of course I do. Corset, I do. Plop that back in there. Big steamy logs. So that became heh wood in Sithbell Survives. Hey, nice glass. Cayman box we'll get to later. So there's a phrase or a sentence that I love. It's a type of sentence called a garden path, which means it starts in one direction and then it goes in a completely different direction. And so this is named Fruit Flies Like a Banana because the sentence is time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana. And it's just one of those little sentences that makes me laugh. The larder is the same and has been. And oh, blue shifted redstone. I refuse to put redstone in a red box. It's so cliche. So I've always made my redstone box blue. And it's blue shifted because, science. Lighting was blue back in the day instead of the yellow. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see how things have changed. But enough about names. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the area. I still really like this little starter house as far as the design goes. It's very cozy. It doesn't have a lot of room for storage, but it served me well for the few months that we were here. Got some foliage, start of a nice path, and just farms everywhere because that's apparently what I like to do. I just put all my farms everywhere. Next up, since it's close, I'm going to show you the first iteration of the lighthouse. And so it's not circular, it's octagonal. And I'd like to say that that was intentional, but it was an unfortunate byproduct of me starting from the top and building my way down. But you can kind of see where our current lighthouse came from in the fact that, well, apart from it being a different shape, it's identical. And the gradient for the black to white is a little bit different. But other than that, pretty much the same. And even inside, we have our bubble vader and our drop chute. Interesting little pattern on the floor, which I actually like the pattern. This is the reason why I keep building lighthouses. I just love looking up inside of them and seeing the swirl. It's so cool. Next up, I have my little tree farm, or tree farms. So this one is for the 1x1 trees, and it's just a little organized area where I grew the trees so it looked nice while I chopped them down. And then over here we have the 2x2 guys. Pretty simple, really. But I really like the way this looks, and I might do something similar to this again, make it kind of a park environment where I chop down my trees. It keeps it pretty well organized, and it keeps the podzol in check when you're growing the big spruce trees. Hey, look, it's another farm just plopped in the middle of the property. Over here, we have my very first foray into proper redstone with my automatic bamboo and sugarcane farms. Do they look familiar? They should, because I've been using this format ever since. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Although I will say that I have this area quite different and more advanced nowadays. I was a little too intimidated with minecarts and unloaders at the time. In fact, I wouldn't even touch them. So this is how I compensated for that. And down here, there's little storage areas and even a primitive shulker loader, so you can just pop a shulker box right here and it would automatically fill them up. Didn't really need it for that side because sugarcane doesn't grow nearly as fast. But for the bamboo, I used my super duper out in the open super smelter, which this was my first ever super smelter. As you can see, this is something that I have improved on over the years because our super smelter can do a lot more than this. I think ours does 32 at a time, and this does what, 10? Why did I do 10? Why didn't I do a multiple of 8? Okay. Um, I'm sure I had my reasons. But yeah, you just load in the stuff to be smelted over here, load in the fuel back here, and then I guess you could load it on both sides. I'm not sure why I did this double-sided. I know the back is because bamboo doesn't do so well. And it takes so many bamboo to smelt a single thing, so that was just to keep the furnaces going, so that makes sense. But the top? I don't know if I was just going for symmetry or what. Of course, we have a pumpkin farm, which is, it is what it is. We have our cactus farm. This was my first ever cactus farm. I over engineered the snot out of this because instead of just putting a fence post or a glass pane, I put a glass block and then signs. It does not need to be that complicated. And then, of course, down here we have our collection, which, I mean, credit where it's due. It's working. Over here, we have my first ever mob system. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know what I did in Minecraft before I started playing on a server. Like, I think I was just exploring a lot, making paths a lot. But, like, I never did any of this stuff before. So, what you do is you drop down this little shaft here. I'm in creative, so I'm just going to drop, open up this door here, and this is where you AFK'd. You'd set your spawn, put your stuff in here, and you just wait for the mobs to drop. Now, let's see if it actually works or not. Oh, hey, close squids spawn in here now. That's funny. So I will say that this world was originally in 1.16, which means there was no deep slate, there was no glow ink, there were no glow squids. The lighting was different, so anything below light level 8 would spawn mobs. So you had to put so many torches down in order to keep mobs from spawning. And again, this was my first foray into playing with mobs on. So I overdid it. I'm pretty sure. Like this is excessive, even for the light level requirements of the time. Goodness gracious, that's so many torches. I'm so glad we don't have to do it this much anymore. So yeah, the mobs would spawn on the platforms. They'd randomly jump off, and then they'd go up into this bubble vader here, go all the way up here, and then splat down to their deaths down here. I did not have the mod that showed me the direction of the hoppers at the time. Otherwise, this would be a lot less chaotic than it is. I didn't know to use ice to keep things moving, so a lot of the times the mobs would just get stuck. But I was so proud of this. This was my own design. I made it. I got the water flowing. I tried to prevent spiders from spawning, and I think it worked some of the time. Anyway, you have a general idea of the concept. And then up here, if you wanted just a viewing chamber to look and see the carnage while they fell, you could. I mean, it worked to a degree. Occasionally spiders would spawn. Occasionally I'd get other drops as well. I'm not really sure how I got the drowned. So yeah, that was my first ever mob farm. We've come a long way. So this was kind of my starter area, and we'd been around long enough that I was ready to expand a little bit further. And so I came over here, and this is redstone that I'm actually really proud of to this day. I had created this before I started playing on the server, and this was one of my first forays into redstone. You can tell I had no idea how to power redstone properly around blocks, so there's lots of slabs hiding stuff. But you just turn that guy off, and it does a little flushing mechanism, and it's timed so that it spawns it uses bone meal, and it goes into the hoppers, and then it comes down here into the system. It worked pretty darn well, and it still does. In fact, I'm probably going to create an iteration of this in Sithbell Survives for one of the farms. Because, again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. This right here is a relic of a bygone age, and I'm actually kind of sad that this doesn't work anymore. This this was an AFK fishing farm, so basically what you would do is you'd come up to here, you'd have a fishing rod in your hand, and you'd set an auto clicker to just right click on this note block constantly. And for some reason, how that worked is it would constantly fish stuff for you. So all the loot drops that you get from fishing, you could get them almost instantly. If you had a mending fishing rod, then it was basically infinite. And when I say that this was overpowered, I mean it was overpowered. You got so much good stuff. And this is probably just from like a single night of AFK. So many books, and good books too. And for newbie little me, this was unbelievably cool because I used to fish the long slow way, and now I do again as well because they nerfed this and now you can't do this anymore, and I'm sad. Over here is the last thing that I built before the server died, and it's kind of a start into my current style today. This was my first experience with sheep farms, and I was so proud. I created 2 modules for each color, and it worked. And then mine carts would roll underneath the sheep, and then they'd bring the wool up in here. Now, I didn't know how to make an auto sorter at the time, so this was just dumping randomly into chests, and I was hoping that it would work. So it ended up not working all that great, and I ended up with a mess down at the bottom. And it's loud, and the mine carts roll around. I think there's a couple that are constantly following each other. But technically it worked. There they go. There's the guys that love to follow each other. And then over here was my first ever dye factory. And as I actually still really like that banner. I'm probably gonna incorporate that somewhere in Sithbell Survives. But in here you could get every single color. Except for green. Green came from the cactus farm on the other side of town. Had a little dye storage there. Little spot to get the 2 tall flowers, which I think you have to manually, like that, turn on. Because I had no idea how to actually set up a clock. It's so ridiculous. And then over here, that's my first ever proper flower farm. It uses the same technology as the nether plants farm, where it uses bone meal and then flushes stuff out. Bone meal makes the flowers grow, the water flushes it into the hoppers, and then a minecart comes and deposits it into the chest in there. I actually like the design of this barn too. I might recreate that somehow with the little columns and stuff and the arches. I think that looks really nice actually. And of course, I called this the banner barn because I mean, it's a barn and it used wool and dye, and I used it to create banners, which is where this guy came from. It's where that guy came from. Unfortunately, the shop never came to fruition because the server died, but it's all here. Oh, hey. Banners for Days is what I named the thing. That's funny. Do I have any more? Oh, those are all the different banner patterns that I had. Oh, there are some more. So this was just me experimenting to see what looked cool and what didn't. And as you can see, not all of them were great. Although that one's kind of cool. A little bit of extra something, something in the middle, and it'd be pretty awesome. So that was my base, but that's not all I built on this server because, as I mentioned earlier, there's a shopping district, which is where you buy the supplies from farms that you didn't want to build but somebody else did. So let's go there real quick. This is the shopping district. It was built on a mushroom island so that mobs wouldn't spawn, which is very convenient. And this is where everybody built their shops for other people to buy stuff. Most of them were never finished because the server died, but some of them did. And this one over here is mine. And I think this might still be one of my favorite shops that I've ever built. Pay no attention to this jungle block over here. I think another server member was going to build a little pop-up shop right here and never ended up filling it out. So these are all empty. But this lovely guy right here, this this was my coral and fish shop. And I called it the Grand Cayman Aquatic Emporium. Oh hey, October of 2020. We have a specific date because I made this very very soon after the server started. Anyway, it's named the Grand Cayman because this was a little over a year after my husband's and my honeymoon to the Caymans, and I based this design on a hotel that was kind of near where we were staying, and I love the aesthetic of it, particularly the blue roof and the white walls. So in here, I sold a little bit of everything. We had fish, alive and dead. We had fishing rods. Oh, hey, I made a diamond. Cool. Sold some lily pads. Basically anything that you could get from fishing, I sold here. I had cooked cod, which is why I need the super smelter. Books that I pulled from fishing. Some bows that were fully leveled up. Whether you wanted mending or infinity, I had you covered. I also sold coral and sea pickles, and that was most of what I sold. I just love this back, and I love the trees that I ended up creating. I think these palm trees turned out so well, like on all sides. I don't do custom trees too terribly often, but I'm really happy with the ones that I do make. Okay, focus. So we had a little pergola out here, and one of the things that I wanted to stress was accessibility. So there's multiple ways to get to every floor. The second floor here, I wanted to kind of indoor outdoor space that was kind of like a little restaurant terracey thing. So I have some tables and chairs, which I still really like. Again, it was very reminiscent of where my husband and I spent our honeymoon, and so has lots of fond memories. I always meant to change this floor from smooth stone, but I forgot and never got around to it before the server died. And then over here, I sold rockets. I forgot that I sold rockets. I know that I probably made a killing on them because I was the first person to sell them. And then buttery baked potatoes because I had farms everywhere and I wanted to use them. So I guess that was what I did. And this is before they changed the ore generation and how it worked for iron and gold. So these were hard earned gold ingots. Down here, we had the treasure room, which again, I had always meant to change the walls into something a little bit more aesthetic, but never got a chance to. And this is where I sold my high value items. So, like a Heart of the Sea, which you can only get from treasure chests. Some Nautilus shells, which, that's probably a bit overpriced, but I know I sold some because this was full. Saddles, which I got from fishing, name tags, which I got from fishing. And again, I don't think I had used villagers at this point, so that is way too high of a price. And then I had the great fishing gamble. I don't know why payments is over to the left when the barrel is clearly over here. But yeah, you'd press it, you'd pay a diamond, and then you'd press a button, and it'd give you something random out of here. And it was always something that I had pulled from fishing. So it could be valuable, it could be trash. Most likely it was trash, but everybody loves to gamble. And so I this was actually my biggest seller was this little dropper. Yeah, this little dropper right here with random fishing junk in it. I decorated a little coral reef for the view out here. Again, I would do this completely differently nowadays, but for the time I was very proud of this. And then I had a little secret exit right here that you could take. And again, I was going to do the walls, but I lost track of time. And then I had a thanks for stopping by, have a nice day sign, and it would dump you into the river. I still love this shop. It might show up somewhere in Sithbell Survives. The palm trees almost certainly will. These were my own design. I made these all on my own. I think I might have looked at some pictures of some people's designs, but I didn't follow a tutorial. These were my own designs. One thing I wish I could have done was expand the sand a bit out more because the mycelium does not do the aesthetic any favors. But for what it is, I really like this shop. Over on the other side of town, there is a much smaller, much less aesthetic, much weirder shop that I made. And that's this guy here. I had it in my head to create a nether tree from the new blocks. And remember at the time these were new. They'd only been out for a couple of months. And I called it the Twisted Trunk. And I can't remember what I sold in here. Oh, understandably, I sold all the nether stuff. Which is why I had those farms, I guess, over at my base. But inside, I killed a lot of wandering traders. I can't say that habit has continued on throughout the years at all. But yeah, it's this is not my best work. I'd make this a little bit less chaotic. Um make the branches make a wee bit more sense, but I wanted this to be kind of a crazy tree where the trunk was out of the warp stem and then the branches were out of the crimson stem. And it kind of works, but again, this is not what I would consider my best work by any stretch of the imagination. And over here we have a map of the island. And again, the Cayman's Emporium looks fantastic. And the other players that were on the server were incredibly talented builders. I am so grateful to have spent any time building with them. I learned so much from these guys. They're so talented and I miss them dearly. Down here we had a bit of a mailbox. Wow. If I ever forget anybody's names, they're down here. Lancer, Cubic, Gil, Kismet. Kismet and I didn't get along. Hey, there's me. I have no mail. Mason, Q, AV. Envy was the server owner, and he and I still actually talk to this day every once in a while. He's doing wonderful things on YouTube and Twitch. His name is Envy Lach. You should go check him out. He is very, very good at what he does. And then there's Slaps. Okay. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. However, we are not done. I was planning on going through the other servers as well today, but this has ended up taking a lot longer than I thought because I built a lot more than I thought in this server. So, in the next episode, we're going to go through where I think I really learned most of what I know now. But anyway, if you made it this far in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.